It's Saturday morning cartoons. Well, that's as close to a cartoon as we're going to get today. The self-portrait of Baba Lon. Here, it's a personal message. 93. And it's Saturday. Anyway, we're still working, or I still want to read some more about what Crowley has to say in his appendix number 3, I think, of Magic and Theory and Practice, or the big book 4, part 3. And where we left off yesterday was, as I was going to promise you, there are two opposite methods of exploring the astral plane. Now, like lots of stuff that Crowley writes, okay, now I'm not criticizing, well, yes, I am. Got to remember, Crowley was dictating this at the Abbey of Thelema. And at the Abbey of Thelema in Sicily, there was it was a sort of a combination monastery and orgiastic experimental lifestyle thing, okay? And as anybody that's ever read Magic and Theory and Practice and appreciates its brilliance, you can also sense, if you're familiar with the way certain psychoactive substances or certain just chemical stimulants and things like that, how they affect the train of thought, you can easily sort of see there's instances not where Crowley's material or his ideas are not absolutely brilliant, but the way he is conveying it is often bereft of punctuation. Now, it's just much like, well, you know how I digress, but there's much in a paragraph written during this period. There's much in a paragraph that's parenthetical, and parenthetical inside parenthetical, so that when you first read it, it's often very easy to get lost in the parenthetical ideas and lose track before you get to the main subject. And in this particular case, when we get to this section of his little essay, I start to get a hint of that, and it's a little more difficult to wade through to get to the point of a sentence. So, in other words, as is common with reading many authors, it is uncomfortable. It's difficult, in places impossible, to really appreciate and get to the core of what ideas are trying to be expressed until you get into the rhythm of the writer, of the author. And once you get into that rhythm, things unfold. Shakespeare is one of those things. When you first start to read Shakespeare, you go, what the, huh? And things are in verse and things aren't. But once you get into the rhythm, once you get into that delicious choice of colored words, your heart beats a little different. Your breath becomes a little different. Well, the same thing with Crowley, but if you can imagine that he's frying on something and you try to get into that rhythm, and it sort of is a challenge sometimes. But here's a straightforward thing that he said, and where we left off yesterday. There are two opposite methods of exploring the astral plane. And then he gives A and B. And you're just hoping, two ways. Okay, what are they? And they're opposite ways. Okay. One may take some actual object in nature and analyze it by evoking its astral form, thus bringing it into knowledge and under control by applying the keys of the Kabbalah and of magic. Now, I'm sure that is probably as accurate and as concise as any statement could be. But it tells us almost nothing. The first part tells us something. One may take some actual object in nature and analyze it by evoking its astral form, thus bringing it into knowledge and under control by applying the keys of the Kabbalah and of magic. And those keys are technical keys that are directly connected to correspondences, and four major levels in this Kabbalah anyway, four major levels of existence. Yod He Vav He. So, the first part, remember yesterday or the day before when he used the example of a person's character is more the person than the person's body. Okay, if you say, there's my friend Jonathan Taylor over there, and there's Jonathan's body. But the essence, his fundamental, primary, first level astral Jonathan Taylor is his character, which is invisible. We can only see the effects of his character as it plays off of other things, like the wind. You can't see the wind, but you can see its effects on other things that you can see. So this idea that the reality behind any object is much like the truer essence of the being of that object, in the same way as a human being's character is more them than the material that makes up their flesh and bones. That being said, we're not getting very far here. One may take some actual object in nature and analyze it. Okay, there's this divinatory or psychic talent that whereby somebody presents you with an object like a watch. Okay, this is somebody's watch. Tell us about that someone. And there are people who are naturally or have worked at becoming sensitive to picking up this watch and say, oh, this watch belonged to a child, maybe 10 or 11 years old, and that child is calling me on the telephone. Do you want to see what I have to say to them? Hello? They didn't like the way I answered the phone. They hung up. Back to my story. It belongs to a child about 9 years old, and I see him rushing. He drops what? Books. He drops a knapsack of books, and he's scurrying them to pick them up because they're in the gutter, and he loses the watch. This watch belonged to a nervous little boy. Well, you know, that's probably what that was. I'm not psychometrizing anything. I'm just giving you an example. But there are people that can pick up an antique ring and go, oh, okay. Psychometry, that's what they call that. That person is picking up on the astral reality of that. Oh, that's making a noise here. I'll take my chance on it ringing. Everything has their astral reality, their astral essence, which is really more what they are than it appears. You might not be able to hit your head on it like getting into a car and hitting your bone head against the metal car. But there's a greater reality, a greater essence, an astral essence, if you will, as Crowley's using the term here, behind the bonehead and the steel car. A number of years ago, I believe it was back in 1990, one of our very dearest and oldest friends was a principal officer or producer, or he was involved heavily in a marvelous project hand in hand with PBS, public television, and various projects, film projects for PBS. And one of them was called From the Heart of the World, the Elder Brother's Warning. I'm going to read you the blurb because it's still available. He was the head of, or a principal officer of the Mystic Fire video series, which of course was responsible for all of the Joseph Campbell Powers of Myth on CBS with Bill Moyers and stuff like that. And so our friends sent us a bunch of stuff. They sent us the Bill Moyers things, and they sent us this thing from the Heart of the World, the Elder Brother's Warning. This is a huge digression today. I beg your pardon. Originally shown on the PBS series Nature is an abridged version, filmmaker Alan Herrera's feature-length documentary on a mysterious South American tribe's warning to the world, is a fascinating cultural study and environmental message. Now remember, this was 1990, so they're probably filming this thing in the late 1980s. Living on a nearly 4-mile high mountain in northern Colombia, the Koji tribe, that's K-O-G-I, the Koji tribe, remnants of the pre-Columbian Tairona people, whose marvelous golden cities were ransacked by Spanish explorers. They believe that they are living in and are the gatekeepers of the heart of the world. In Koji mythology, they are the elder brothers who are responsible for the continuing well-being of Mother Earth. Unfortunately, the younger brothers, Western civilization, have followed the dictates of materialism and instant gratification, and in the process are doing great damage to Mother Earth. The Koji, whose habit encompasses virtually all climates and an abundant variety of ecosystems, from snowy mountaintops to lush jungle vegetation, have witnessed in recent years the changing patterns in bird migrations, the extinction of species, and the growing scarcity of snow on the mountains. Although never previously allowing a camera crew to enter their village, they invited Iraria to record a message from the elder brothers to the younger brothers about what we are doing to our world. From the heart of the world, poignant, beautifully filmed, etc., etc. Okay. Why am I bringing that up as a exegesis on this one line? One may take some actual object in nature and analyze it, evoking its astral form, bringing it into knowledge and under control by applying the keys of, and in Crowley's case, Kabbalah and magic. In the Koji's case, by the creation of a seer. Here's what they do. And it's a mysterious tribe. They no cameras, things like that. They have a shaman, okay, which is not an uncommon thing. Every culture has a shaman. Their shaman is something quite extraordinary and has everything to do with the layer of the astral that's behind every object. Their shaman is trained literally from birth through some means, psychic means, similar to how Tibetans discover the newest incarnation of a famous or a powerful lama or an important holy man, and they know where they're likely to be born and who they're going to be born to, and in a similar manner, they know when the next shaman, when the next seer is going to be born. And they do something extraordinary, and probably in most countries around the world is probably highly illegal. They treat the mother-to-be as a divine incarnation of the next seer, and they treat her like a goddess. And they prepare in a dark but very warm and cozy and pleasant cave. They prepare a nursery for her to give birth. And people come and bring her things and sing to her and make the birth just as pleasant as possible, but all in this very dark, ambient, warm, moist. The earth itself becomes a womb for the mother in her womb and the seer that is to be born. And they make sure that the birth goes very, very well. And the mother wants for nothing. The child wants for nothing. And the child is actually raised. And I don't know to what age, but at least a few years in this pleasant, warm, nurturing, blissful environment. And members of the village come in when the child is old enough to start to understand things. Teach her the language, teach her the how to speak and how to communicate. And then they come in and they systematically describe the world around her, the world outside the cave. One will come in and talk about the rocks and the different kinds of rocks. And they're hard, and they're like the bones of the Mother Earth that we're in, and some are covered with a beautiful moss and things like that. And then there's the rocks that are in the brooks or the trees or the water, and they describe absolutely everything in the outside world, the village, other people. They describe everything so that the child puts the astral form of absolutely all objects in nature in her mind. In her mind, which is the astral world. And then at a certain age, the child comes out, has to squint for a while, but comes out and actually sees the material object of the rock and of the trees and of the animals and of the village people. She sees their physical form, but she's not seeing their physical form primarily. She's seeing their astral form. Does that make sense, this process? One may take some object, some actual object in nature, and analyze it by evoking its astral form, thus bringing it into knowledge and under control by applying the keys of, in Crowley's case, correspondences, mathematical, hierarchy of beings. Okay. Compared to this, what I've just described is pretty cold stuff, but actually it's the same stuff. Second one, or number B, one may proceed by invoking the required idea and giving body to the same by attracting to it corresponding elements in nature. Okay, the idea of joyful competition. There's an idea, joyful competition, and then attracting to it the idea of athletic health and excellence and joyful, brotherly sportiness or something like that. Or what? Okay, these are two simple sentences here that really require you to do some homework in your own home. By that, Crowley goes on to say, what is that home? Well, we all live in a different home, guys. Every magician possesses an astral universe peculiar to himself, just as no man's experience of the world is coterminous with that of another. There will be a general agreement on main points, of course, and so the Master Therian is able to describe the principal properties of these planes and their laws, just as he might write an essay on geography, giving an account of the 5 continents, the oceans and seas, the most notable mountains and rivers. He could not pretend to put forth the whole knowledge that any one peasant possesses in respect of his district. But to the peasant, these petty details are precisely the most important items in his daily life. Likewise, the magician will be grateful to the Master Therian for the compass that guides him at night, the map that extends his comprehension of his country and shows him how best he may travel afield, the advice as to the sandals and staff that make sure his feet, and the book that tells him how, splitting open his rocks with a hammer, he may be master of their virgin gold. But he will understand that his own career on earth is his kingdom, and that even the Master Therian is no more than a fellow man in another valley, and that he must explore and exploit his own inheritance with his own eyes and hands. The magician must not accept the Master Therian's account of the astral plane, his Kabbalistic discoveries, his instructions in magic. They must be correct in the main for most men, yet they cannot be wholly true for any save him, even as no two artists can make identical pictures of the same subject. More, even in fundamentals, though these things be truth for all mankind, as we carelessly say. That was a parenthetical within a parenthetical, so I'm going to complete the sentence without the parenthetical. More, even in the fundamentals, any one particular magician may be the one man for whom they are false. May not the flag that seems red to 10,000 seem green to some other? Then, every man and every woman being a star, that which is green to him is verily green. If he consent to the crowd and call it red, hath he not broken the staff of truth that he leaneth upon? Okay. Each and every man, therefore, that will be a magician must explore the universe for himself. This is preeminently the case in the matter of the astral plane, because the symbols are so sensitive. Nothing is easier than to suggest visions or to fashion phantasms to suit one's ideas. It's obviously impossible to communicate with an independent intelligence, the one real object of astral research, if one allows one's imagination to surround one with courtiers of one's own creation. Okay, this is where I'm going to stop reading today. We'll pick it up here tomorrow. But I want to point something out. In the early 1900s, Crowley took his student and his friend, Victor Newberg, and they took a magical retirement by walking across the North Africa Sahara. There's all sorts of stories of tales of half the time they were sleeping under the stars and the other half the time they were sleeping at a Moroccan Motel 6. But actually, it was probably a pretty damn heroic thing. But during their walk, Crowley systematically stopped in the evenings and sometimes in the day to scry the 30 Enochian aethers. In other words, ceremonially penetrate 30 levels of consciousness as demarcated by the Enochian system in the same way that the Kabbalistic system demarcates the 10 levels of the Tree of Life. And the idea is to using Enochian magic, create a magical environment, at least temporarily, where you receive a vision that is limited only by the capabilities of your own frequency of consciousness. In other words, your level of initiation. I mean, true level of initiation, not some club or something. And it's chronicled in a series of visions called The Vision and the Voice, which is not so much a Class A document, but a very, very important document, especially when you want to at least see how a step-by-step unfoldment worked for one magician who could write things down pretty well. In other words, he got 30 visions, and he chronicled these visions in The Vision and the Voice, and they are very freaking interesting and enlightening to read. It's some of Crowley's best stuff. And not only that, because it dealt with his own personal initiatory journey. And that in one respect, Crowley's personal initiatory journey was reflective of that of the entire human consciousness at this particular point of human evolution, but we could say the same for each of us. They're wonderful visions. Now, when teaching Enochian magic, it's really, really common for the teacher to say, okay, let's read Crowley's vision that he received at the 29th, the 28th, or the 30th Aether, and then we'll try it. Okay? So it's very tempting to say, okay, let's have a class, let's read Crowley's vision, and then let's chant the call, and let's get a vision ourselves. Okay? For years and years and years, we didn't do anything like that. We went through the aethers systematically and you got what you got, and you wrote down what you got. And only after a couple of years of doing that series, that 30-week series that we would do, then we'd say, okay, this is what Crowley got. Now let's compare it to what you got, okay? Because ultimately and theoretically, you got the same thing Crowley got. But that's how it looked to Crowley. And that's how it looked to you. Anyway, we'll pick it up. But I digress. We'll pick it up tomorrow for Sunday school, or maybe do something even a little extra fun. But until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Please. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.